The night of April 6, 1994, plunged Rwanda into darkness. A plane carrying President Juvenal Habyarimana was shot down over Kigali. Habyarimana, a Hutu, perished alongside Burundian President Cyprien Ntaryamira. The crash, still shrouded in mystery, ignited a long-planned conspiracy. Extremist Hutu factions, blaming Tutsi rebels, seized the opportunity. This was the match thrown onto a pyre of ethnic hatred, years in the making. The assassination was not an isolated incident, it was a meticulously planned trigger. Within hours, chaos engulfed Kigali. Roadblocks manned by armed militias choked the city. Lists of key targets, Tutsis and moderate Hutus, circulated. Among the first victims was Prime Minister Agathe Uwilingiyimana, a moderate Hutu. Her murder, along with 10 Belgian UN peacekeepers assigned to protect her, signaled the grim intentions of the extremists. With chilling swiftness, an interim government was formed. Led by Theodore Sindikubwabo, a hardline Hutu, it solidified the extremist grip on power. This was not a government in any true sense, it was a junta, its sole aim the extermination of the Tutsi population. Radio Rwanda, hijacked by the regime, became a tool of terror, broadcasting venomous propaganda that dehumanized Tutsis and incited violence against them. The radio, once a source of music and news, now blared calls to action, urging Hutus to cut down the tall trees. The speed and brutality of the killings shocked even those familiar with Rwanda's turbulent past. The world, however, seemed slow to grasp the scale of the unfolding horror. The assassination of Habyarimana, a tragedy in itself, quickly became a footnote in a much larger narrative of planned annihilation. The first few days after the crash were not merely an aftermath, they were the opening salvo in a genocide of horrifying efficiency. The Rwandan genocide did not spontaneously erupt, it was meticulously orchestrated. Hutu extremist elements within the government, military and media had been laying the groundwork for years. Anti-Tutsi sentiment, fueled by a potent cocktail of historical grievances, economic anxieties and political opportunism, was systematically inflamed. Hate radio poured venom into the ears of the populace, dehumanizing Tutsis and painting them as a threat to Hutu dominance. With the assassination of Habyarimana, the plan swung into full and terrible effect. The machinery of death, fueled by years of preparation and hate-mongering, was unleashed. The killings began in Kigali, spreading with terrifying speed to the countryside. Neighbors turned on neighbors, friends on friends. Hutu militias, armed with machetes, clubs and guns, roamed the streets, butchering Tutsis and those Hutus who dared to oppose them. The methods employed were shocking in their brutality. Machetes, readily available farming tools, became instruments of mass murder. The aim was not just to kill, but to inflict maximum suffering. Men, women and children were hacked to death, shot, burned alive and clubbed. Rape, often perpetrated in public and with unimaginable cruelty, was systematically used as a weapon of war. The aim was not only to terrorize and subjugate, but to defile and destroy the very fabric of Tutsi society. The world watched, largely in stunned silence, as the small Central African nation descended into an abyss of violence. The UN peacekeeping force, hopelessly outnumbered and outgunned, could do little but bear witness to the carnage. The international community, paralyzed by inertia and political expediency, seemed content to issue condemnations while the killing continued unabated. Rwanda, in those early days of April 1994, became a byword for human barbarity, a stark reminder of the fragility of peace and the terrible consequences of unchecked hatred. As the genocide gathered pace, the world's response ranged from inadequate to shameful. The United Nations, mandated to maintain international peace and security, faltered. Despite mounting evidence of systematic killings, the UN Security Council refused to call it a genocide, a designation that would have obligated decisive intervention. Instead, they dithered, paralyzed by political calculations and a lack of will. On April 21st, in a move that would forever stain its reputation, the UN voted to withdraw the majority of its peacekeeping force from Rwanda. Citing security concerns for its personnel, the UN effectively abandoned the Rwandan people to their fate. The withdrawal sent a chilling message to the perpetrators. The world was not watching and they could continue their murderous rampage with impunity. The Rwandan Patriotic Front, RPF, a Tutsi-led rebel group based in neighboring Uganda, was the only force actively trying to stop the genocide. On April 12, the RPF launched an offensive, advancing on Kigali and other strategic locations. Outgunned and outnumbered, the RPF fought with the desperation of those who knew they were the last line of defense against total annihilation. The UN withdrawal had a devastating impact on the ground. It emboldened the perpetrators, who saw it as a green light to escalate the killings. It also dashed the hopes of those Tutsis and moderate Hutus who had sought refuge in UN-protected zones, only to be abandoned to their killers. The world's inaction had a direct and tragic consequence. It fueled the genocide, allowing it to reach horrific proportions. The first 4 weeks of the Rwandan genocide were a period of unimaginable horror and suffering. In a mere 100 days, an estimated 800,000 people were slaughtered, most of them hacked to death with machetes. The scale and brutality of the violence left an indelible scar on the soul of Rwanda, a wound that continues to fester even today. The genocide was not just a failure of the Rwandan state, it was a failure of humanity. The international community, with its vast resources and capacity for intervention, stood by and watched as a nation descended into an abyss of self-destruction. The UN's decision to withdraw its peacekeeping force remains a stain on its conscience, a stark reminder of the human cost of indifference and inaction. The legacy of those early days continues to shape Rwanda today. The country has made remarkable progress in rebuilding itself, both physically and emotionally. But the scars of the genocide run deep. The trauma of that period continues to haunt survivors, many of whom lost everything: their families, their homes, their sense of security and belonging. The Rwandan genocide stands as a chilling testament to the destructive power of hatred, and the urgent need for vigilance in the face of intolerance and discrimination. It is a stark reminder that the world cannot afford to be complacent in the face of evil. The words "never again," so often uttered in the aftermath of genocide, ring hollow unless they are backed by a genuine commitment to action. The world failed Rwanda in 1994, it must not fail again.